Okay, this is 15 tips for kids at Disney World during a pandemic. So the first is always have your kids wear a mask. It's super important. So they should always be wearing a mask. The second is to dress appropriately. Obviously, Florida can get warm very quickly, so you want jackets that can be easily removed. Next is make sure that your kids never eat a ton of sugar, because if they eat a lot of sugar, they can get rowdy very quickly, and that's something you really want to be conscious of because it'll ruin your day. Next is never let kids be near the edges of rides. They can easily jump out. So you always want to make sure kids are well contained and in a safe place away from danger. Next is you always want to make sure you have an activity for them prepared so that if they get really upset, they don't get too angry. Next, tip number 7 is similar to the last one. Yeah, you always want to make sure you have an escape plan and that there aren't attractions that they can't do. Next is always keep kids safe in parking lots. You never want to let them run because they can stumble and get hit by a car. Similar thing here. You want to always make sure you're giving lessons to your kids and that they're being safe. Next is if you take your kids home on a nap, which you absolutely should, you should have a safe space prepared where they can't escape or play too much. Also, you want to make sure you enforce the rules. So if you tell a kid they can walk, you got to let them walk. You can't really change your mind midway through because that will look not great. And then next, tip number 12, rides usually look cool in person, but they kind of look silly on video. So don't overshare. Next, tip number 14, if you get your kid an animal or they bring an animal, just don't do it because they're going to throw it. And similarly, you want to make sure that they always look to see where they're going because they can run into stuff. Tip number 17 here is just making sure your kid is getting the proper food they need. Granola bars, Laura bars, great food so that they're always enjoying their time. And if you do give them a fork to eat with it, make sure that they don't grind it into the ground and then eat it. Landscaping, really great at Disney, can make for a really fun attraction, so please just be careful when kids start playing in pine straw. Tip number 20, if your kid gets too bored during the parade, which they can because it's kind of long and boring, you always got to have a backup plan. So it's helpful to have grandparents or aunts and uncles there that can help sort of pass off a child so that they don't just stand there screaming the whole time. And again, if you bring an animal or a friend into the park, they're gonna get lost and dropped. Also, yeah, if you're gonna do the teacups, do not go too fast because your kid will get sick and you don't want that. Tip number 41, always great to have a place for kids to have an activity. Tip number 42, if you bring a sibling, careful with the sunlight, very bright. You also want to make sure that you can start teaching them how to share. It's great to share. Tip number 43, always great to have kids on shoulders. It's safer up there. Tip number 44, similarly, you always want to have a person keeping an eye on kids in case they fall and or run away. Again, back to the landscaping here, tip number 45, really great to have kids sort of be conscious of their surroundings so that they don't fall, and again, drop their stuffed animal. Last but not least, tip number 46, always important to dance when you're at Disney World. So, yeah, that's the tips. I hope you enjoyed them, and I hope you come back and subscribe. Oh, yeah, also, don't do the fireworks in the park. Too many people. Just go on the boat, watch them on the boat. It's way better. Would recommend.